Welcome to the Crimson Engine. My name's Rubidium. The film industry is in trouble. If you turn on any sort of social media these days, you will hear that a lot of people are out of work. The films are not performing at the box office as people hoped they would. And that generally there's a lot of doom and gloom around the film and television industries. And if you look at the statistics, this is also true. So if you look at film, the box office peaked in 2018, believe it or not, 11.8 billion at the US domestic box office. It was down a little in 2019, and then it was absolutely savaged by the pandemic in 2020, which not surprising. They closed the cinemas, so how can people watch movies? The movies that were meant to be shown in the cinema were shown on television. It started peak TV, the boom of that cycle. But you'd think that since it has been 5 years since the pandemic, almost 6, that movies would have come back. When in fact, they've only come back a little. They've come back to almost 9 billion in 2023 with the whole Barbieheimer thing. But actually last year, the full year we have numbers for was down from that. And then this year is running about quarter for quarter. This year is actually down about 30 or 40% from last year at the same time. So it is looking pretty glum for the film industry. How did this happen? Well, the film industry is currently locked in something called a death spiral, whereby fewer people have gone to the movies. So the theater chains have raised prices and, had stealth ways of making more money, like, increasing food prices, increasing parking costs, that sort of thing. So they're trying to extract more profit from the people who are still going. And then fewer people go because it's more expensive, and then so on and so on. The same is happening at the studio level, where rather than take chances with new types of IP, the studios are doing more reboots, more sequels, and trying to double down on what they know works. But the same thing happens when you're getting the same thing again and again. You're less likely to go to the movie theater, more likely to watch it streaming later because you've already seen the other parts. The two films that have actually hit this year are, Sinners, definitely original. That was a total standout, and it's fantastic that it actually got made and has done as well as it has. The second one is the Minecraft movie, which no one was expecting big things from on the studio side, but then it absolutely took off like a rocket, and they had the whole chicken jockey meme and actually got people who wouldn't normally go to theaters to go and see it in theaters. It looks like COVID set back the film industry's revenues by about 15 years. So you had to go all the way back to 2005 to have as bad year as we have now. And of course, that's not adjusted for inflation. So to adjust for inflation, you'd probably have to go back over 20 years in the movie business to make less money than you're making now. And what's crazy is that movies are a lot more expensive now to make than they were 20 years ago. Go back 20 years, George Lucas was able to make The Phantom Menace for just over $100 million, whereas the last full Star Wars to be made, Rise of Skywalker, cost over $400 million. So the profits are a lot less, but the budgets are a lot more. So we're going to talk about that in a little bit when I talk about independent film. But up until this point, we have only been talking about box office. So that is the money that the movie theaters make and then share with the studios. It would be fine if people were making that, making the difference up in streaming, because back in 1999, streaming wasn't an issue. There was no such thing as streaming. You did have huge DVD profits and rental profits, and domestic television, which was massive. And now you don't have either of those. So streaming has replaced it. So if these movies were making as much money on streaming as they're losing at the box office, we would be fine. But that's not really the case. Streaming has moved to a subscription model, as most people know. You pay a certain amount of money per month for Netflix, Disney Plus, Paramount Plus, Apple TV Plus, what else? Amazon Prime. And for that, you get an unpredictable amount of films and TV shows. What was happening up until 2023 was that everyone was investing very heavily and paying a premium to get the best shows they could to try and build up their library and build up their subscriber base, while everyone else was doing the same thing. So it's called peak television, and it was this race to get as many subscribers as you could before people worked out that maybe you don't want to be paying, $200 a month for every subscription. What stopped that race was the strikes. The Screen Actors Guild and the Writers Guild both went on strike, which meant no new programming could be made. And they stayed on strike for the better part of 2023. What this revealed to the streaming services was that even if the amount of new content slows to a trickle, people will still keep their subscription. So Netflix realized that even not making any new shows in the States, they were still able to keep most of the subscribers. The same with Disney Plus, the same with Prime. Though Prime's different because it's coupled up with like free delivery for Amazon. So who knows what's happening there. When the strikes ended and everyone was expected to go back to work, the studios realized that they had been overspending by a lot to keep subscribers that they were going to keep anyway. And so they massively decreased the amount of content they were making. They moved a lot of the content they were making overseas because it was now, with the increased cost of making content here in America, they were able to make it other places and get tax credits there. So, the film industry, Film LA, keeps track of all the permits for filmmaking in Los Angeles, California, and that's way, way down. 30, 40, 50%, even going back to before the strikes. And so it looks like film production has probably moved out of Southern California for good. So there is a concept in, psychology, philosophy called zero-based thinking, which is we often do what we've been doing, even if the reasons to keep doing what we were doing have disappeared. So it's an exercise in stepping back from the business as usual, in this case, film production and film marketing and film budgets, and then looking what is actually essential, what actually is going to make a difference to what is going to earn money. And the studios have been doing this in a small way, but they're very much stuck in the way that they make films and television shows. Whereas independent filmmakers can step back and say, I'm not picking on continuity, but continuity, for instance. There is a continuity team that shows up every day on a film set, sits there, works out what side the person's hair is parted, where the coffee cup is on the table, how full is it, and sort of the editor's representative on set, so that two shots that if they messed up the continuity wouldn't cut, the continuity person is there to make sure that they do. This, for most people in most circumstances, continuity is totally irrelevant. Nobody cares if the coffee cup is half full, then half empty, then half full again from one shot to the next. Yes, it's good to have, the blood splatter on someone's face match the previous shot. But again, the audience is there for the story. The audience doesn't really care if there's continuity. And yet continuity has snuck its way into every film and television show. It's paid spent millions and millions of dollars to have someone on set making these copious notes. And for some reason, people think that it matters. There are a lot of jobs like that on a film set, which have been slowly added over the decades of film and don't really make any difference to the way people watch and enjoy films. Starting with no baggage, with zero-based thinking. How can I tell a story? How can I engage an audience? How can I make a film with the least possible steps while still being safe? There are a lot of safety concerns on big budget movies, on Hollywood sets, that became concerns when older technology like HMIs and tungsten bulbs and high voltage were an issue. But now that we're shooting with LEDs, we're shooting with much lower voltage that you just plug into the wall or run off batteries, aren't an issue anymore. And yet those safety precautions are still in place and cost time and cost money. And as independent, you're able to work around those. Same with the guilds. There are so many things on a Hollywood set that if you showed them to an alien, you say, this is the way we wanted to tell this story, and this is the way we went about it. We rented tens of thousands of square feet of studio. We built a house exactly like the one that was over there. We lit it with hundreds of lights, with costing tens of thousands of dollars a day, all for a background that's going to be out of focus anyway, for an actor to say 2 lines. Hollywood has fallen into these patterns of how films are produced. Some of it is status. Some of it is safety from before it needed to be safe. Some of it is just people wanting more people around them so that they have a bigger crew and they feel more important, even if those people aren't doing much. If you talk to anyone on a film set, most of it is waiting around for something to happen or someone to do something else. And it was only a matter of time before that bloat became too expensive to keep maintaining. The rising costs and the falling profits of this world of entertainment are actually really hiding something more important about the audience of these films. And that is that people at the end of the day are not watching as much. They're not going to the theater and they're not watching as much television. Consumer behavior, as marketers like to say, is shifting from the screen of the television to the private screen of the phone. The average teen, 20-something, uses TikTok for 2.5 hours a day. That's longer than a movie. So it's not as though people aren't on screens. It's that they're on a small screen watching, thousands of 10-second videos rather than they're sitting down to watch one 90-minute film or some 8-hour TV show. And that is really telling. It's really telling that our attention spans are getting smaller and that the stories that they were engaging with are more somewhere in between, our Facebook feed of people whom we know and things happening in their life and anecdotes they have, and something very specific to us. Because we had, since the 50s, it has been this era of mass media where 1 or 2 or 3 channels owned by the similar and the same people broadcast over mass media the one message that everyone then consumed. And since the rise of the internet, those niches have gotten smaller and smaller and smaller. So you could have a successful TV show that only was seen by a few 100,000 people if it was in the right slot and had the right ads. I mean, West Wing is a perfect example. But now in the era of personal media and niche media, really everyone is their own demographic. So the weirder, the stranger, the more niche, the better. We're no longer trying to tell stories for every 14, 15-year-old in the world. We're trying to tell stories that are very specific to one individual group of people, even a group of one. And that says something to their particular concerns, their values, their struggles. And so Hollywood isn't equipped to do that. Hollywood isn't equipped to make, 10,000 small movies a year. They're equipped to make 10 really big ones. So people used to make mass media, and then they would market that through the mass media. So they would make a film like Phantom Menace. They would put ads on bus shelters, on TV, on newspapers, and they would let the whole world know that there's a new Star Wars movie. However, now in the age of individual demographics, of targeted marketing through Facebook and Google and TikTok, you can let an individual type of person know that there's a movie out there that's right for them. And that the For You page or the personalized feed is a great way of affordably getting your message in front of specific people that fit the niche of a particular film. So I really do believe that we're entering the golden age of independent filmmaking, where one person can produce a film for very little money. They can market that film to the niche that's specific to their audience. They can take chances. They don't have to do a Star Wars ripoff. They don't have to do a Die Hard ripoff. They don't have to make Barbie. They can make a film that's really personal and important to them about something that is one of their really big concerns, and they can get it in front of and monetize it to that same niche through social media and the capabilities of social media. So I really do think that we're entering the golden age of independent film. It is essentially a perfect opportunity to make a film that speaks specifically to you, and then use the internet to find other people to who that speaks to. I would often see, read about Roger Corman or other independent filmmakers of like the 60s and 70s and think, oh man, there were so few movies in theaters that if you just anyone who could make a film, who could afford to put the film on celluloid, could get a chance. Everyone could, make a really great return. But you needed hundreds of thousands of dollars, which were, many times more that considering inflation now, back then, to just film the film. You didn't have access to, like a $3,000, $4,000 cinema camera that can create an incredible image and, be able to move the camera, light it for pennies, get access and find these incredible locations for, a few $100s a day. None of that was possible in the 60s and 70s. You needed deep pockets. You needed big money and able to just rent the camera and turn it over. So I want to encourage people out there and say that there's never been a better time to be a filmmaker. There's never been a better time to make the film that speaks to you. There's never been a better time to get that film, monetize it, help it find an audience that is then going to help you get your next one made. It is a golden opportunity that, cameras have never been simpler. You can see what you're going to actually get on the screen on the back of the camera. That was never a thing. Back when you're shooting film, you could look through the eyepiece and hope that you truly exposed it. But now we can, load a LUT into the camera, see almost exactly what we're going to get when we shoot. And it's an incredible opportunity. And I think in 20 years' time, whatever media looks like then, we will look back on this moment and see that the new generation of great filmmakers were built and storytellers were built now. You have no obligation to make a film for 90 minutes because, that's what you can sell in Germany on television. You can tell the story in the way that you want to tell it. You can shoot it as long as you want. You can distribute it in the way that you want. if you tell a story that people connect with, people will be happy to watch it and support more of that. So that is my take on the fall of Hollywood and the rise of the independent filmmaker. Why there is no good reason why it can't be you. Thank you very much for watching. I will see you next time.